Each prisoner crosses an aisle before the execution in order to calm the fear of prisoners. Paul, the warden of the prison, painted this aisle green. This aisle connects life and death. It was called the Green Journey. But the good Paul, at the age of 45, he was suffering from a UTI. But the work must go on. One day a big, strong prisoner came to the prison. His name was John. The guards were afraid to look at him. They were afraid that he would not be able to control his resistance. But this ungrateful, connected man, this ungrateful relation was sneering at him. Paul couldn't stand the thought of asking him to avoid it. He was afraid that John would not be able to control him if he resisted. But when he looked up, he found the tall, lanky man in front of him with a kind face, lovely and timid. He asked Paul if he would turn off the light at night because he was afraid of the dark, and Paul said he would leave the light on in the hallway at night, and he untied his hand, and John kindly held out his hand to express his gratitude. Looking at the neat John, Paul's intuition that this case must be something else, so he started looking through the files. It turned out that 2 little girls had disappeared not long ago, and when the parents of the girls found them, they saw him holding the girls and crying.
I couldn't help it. I tried to take it back.
And the police thought John was the murderer and arrested him. Such a decisive judgment. Paul's heart became more suspicious. At night, Paul was awakened from a deep sleep by the pain of the disease. The pain was so intense that he solved it before he reached the toilet. The pain made him fall straight to the ground. The next day, another prisoner came to the prison, and the demented appearance made the guards let their guard down. Often we are fooled by the appearance of things, but John reminded Paul that he must be more careful. If nothing else, an accident was about to happen. The prisoner who had just entered the door strangled the guards. The cowardly relatives are too scared to move. And Paul, who came to help, was kicked in the face. The cool thief's kick made his life worse than death. Fortunately, another colleague arrived in time. The prisoner was knocked to the ground with a stick. At this moment John kept calling out to Paul. Paul had no choice but to come to him with difficulty. John grabbed Paul when he wasn't looking. The other hand went to the crotch as the light became brighter and brighter. Finally, it exploded. John let go of Paul, but then he also coughed. A black worm flew out of his mouth. Now it was like this. John inexplicably cured Paul of his illness. Makes him even more sure that such an angel, surely not a murderer. He personally approached the lawyer who was defending John. The lawyer compared his dog to John. Powerless, Paul returned to prison. As a token of his gratitude, he handed John bread made by his wife. The kind-hearted John also gave it to other inmates. The man on the sidelines tried to eat it, but didn't get it. Paul warned him to shut up. The result was spit on. But Billy peed on the guards more than ever. But the other guards are not so kind. Took a water pistol and gave him a good beating. He was put in solitary confinement. When he came out, Billy still did not change his mind, and in a flash, he squirted a chocolate chip cookie out of his mouth, sprayed in the face of the guards. At that moment, the relationship of the prisoner who had just finished bullying came over. Billy grabbed him by the hand. He molested him. He was scared to death of the inmate, warned everyone not to say anything, and the prisoner he had bullied, Dale, laughed at him from the sidelines. He also held a grudge. In a few days Dale will be executed. His only wish was that Paul would treat his friend, Little Mouse, well. The next minute the mouse ran out and chased the roller, only to be trampled to death by a connected man. Dale was devastated, and the relator left without a backward glance. At this moment John said he could save the mouse. He put the mouse in his hand as the mouse's tail moved. Then a flash of blinding light, and the mouse came back from the dead, and John coughed even more than the last time, spitting out more black worms. The guards were stunned. The arrogant connections were also beaten up by everyone. They said they would let themselves be executed once and then leave. It turned out that this time, the execution was for Dale. Because of Dale's ridicule before, he deliberately did not wet the sponge. When the current was turned on, he did not die instantly. Dale cried out in pain. Smoke billowed from his body. The air was filled with the stench. There were stunned prison guards were stunned. The stage was in a mess, and John was in his cell right now. Also felt the same pain, and so Dale was burned alive. And one of the guards couldn't stand it. He gave him a direct punch, but in order to get him to leave, Paul stopped it in time, put him in a small black room. At this moment Paul also learned that his boss's wife had brain cancer, wanted John to help save it, so he took him out of the prison at nightfall.